Hello YouTube, Alex here with another Freebird Media live stream. Today it is Monday, February 3rd, 2020. Thank you if you're tuning in to watch this stream. This is just kind of a fun stream today that a lot of people have been asking me to do for a while, and it's just been something that I haven't had time to get around to doing. But there is also a strategic purpose that I want to do to just to have a bit of a record of this. But I've been talking to a lot of people lately about Ronny Cameron and the white nationalist movement in Canada because I'm working on a longer form article about Kurt Phillips and Antifa and ARC. And after 4 years of being in this Toronto scene politically and dealing with a lot of the fringes, I have an article I'm working on comparing a lot of the far left with the far right and contrasting, comparing certain things. And I plan on doing a bunch of streams soon about Antifa later this week. But as sort of a prelude to that, I wanted to do this stream to kind of document some stuff with one of somebody that I have a bit of bad blood with, the white nationalist Ronny Cameron. And I think you'll see what I mean after. Howard, I'm glad you're in the chat, man. I hope you stick around because I want to get your opinion on this. You specifically, Howard, because I see you on Twitter and stuff. I want to know your opinion of this after you see some of this stuff. So then I would be very curious to get your I'd be curious on a lot of people's feedback on this. But so I want to give some intro to this just to set people. So basically, who I'm talking about is Ronny Cameron. He's a white. This is from his Facebook page. I'm gonna go over a lot of this in chronological order too. So we're going back a few years here. But I'm using this as sort of a teaching tool because it shows you how. I want to make a point about how grifters use right-wing politics to chase fads and try to basically, get money, and why it's a detriment to all right-wing causes. Like I don't identify as a right-wing person, also, by the way, but I've observed a lot over the years, and if I were to give honest advice to different groups, I would say that a lot of people on the right get bad reputations because of stuff that they're associated with, and I have experienced that a lot myself. So I speak from a place of experience here. Optics do matter, and there are things that you should keep in consideration. So there's a lot of cliches all wrapped up in one bundle with Ronny too. So it's a good point. So Ronny started off as sort of a basic conservative, middle ground kind of guy because he had no real background. He has no education or background in politics. But during the Trump fever, he kind of was like, oh, I can capitalize on this and try to build a YouTube following after his apparently was in a metal band that didn't work out. And then very quickly it started to escalate into like farther and farther to the alt-right and then white nationalism, and then it ended up with him declaring himself the leader of the alt-right. Now, one thing I want to point out is politically, Ronny has expressed that he is essentially doesn't support homosexuality or the LGBTQ movement because it contributes to, as he says, every white person that becomes gay means less white babies. Now, I have always thought that this entire movement in Canada, the white nationalist movement, and Ronny Cameron's movement especially, was a joke, on par with Antifa, easily on par with Antifa, because as he says here, he's a white nationalist who supports Zionism and has a black girlfriend. So he has a black girlfriend, and I have nothing against, interracial dating or anything like that. Keep in mind, I am not a right-wing person in the sense that it's usually applied in these conversations. I'm not against, I personally am in a relationship with someone who's not white, so I have nothing against it. But I'm just pointing out that right on the surface, that trying to be the leader of a white nationalist movement while having a black girlfriend and then also using the logic that gay people contribute to less white babies, it seems on the surface to me idiotic and stupid. But if we were to continue, Ronny also, he was the co-host briefly before he got fired by Richard Spencer, and now he's trying to denounce Richard as being a racist and a bad person because the leaked audio came out where Richard Spencer clearly is a piece of shit and racist in my opinion. But let's not pretend that Ronny doesn't have a very long history of the same stuff. He knows who his following is. He's been at this he's a it was a gradual descent into this, but he definitely knows who his following is, who he wants, and he does a lot of, he talks online too, about ethno state a lot, and he does streams about solutions to the racial problem in Canada, and he said he's on Facebook advocating for an ethno state in Alberta. So when I say that he is, when I draw attention to the stuff for why people on the left or why people make fun of the fringes, that there's a reason why I'm doing it. But I also, I'm of the opinion that he's a liar, that he's complete fake, and he's dishonest. One of the ways that I would evidence this, and I've waited years to do this stream, but it takes years to get a reputation, to have consistency, to show who you are, etc., etc. Anyone that's followed my channel knows who I am. They've seen I'm not the same person I was several years ago, specifically because of my own evolution. But it's very, on record and documented, and I would say rational. This, I'll show you, is pure hucksterism. So Ronnie in the beginning started off as a big fan of the JDL and was working with them. And I, for a guy that has no, not real knowledge of religion and no background in politics and everything, I thought that it was kind of funny. He definitely was hyping them. Sorry, let me edit this one out of order. So, here he is with his JDL T-shirt on. He would be going to rallies, and he was a big supporter of the JDL for a while. And it didn't take long. I think probably about 6 months. And he'd gone full anti-Semite down the rabbit hole, the JQ stuff, and it gets pretty cringy. But we're gonna keep going here. Oh yeah, and here's the other thing, Ronnie. When I first started seeing him around, I tried to ignore him for at least a year, and he would see what I would be doing, and I was really against anti-white racism at the time, and anti-white propaganda in the media, which still bothers me, which I'm still against. And I was doing a lot of vocal work, denouncing anti-white rhetoric, standing up for white people when they were getting bullied with progressive ideologues, stuff like that. And he would see that, and Ronnie's the kind of guy that will observe other people and then try to model certain points after them or incorporate whatever he thinks will work and market himself. It's not genuine though, but he would constantly to be texting me or sending me messages about how he wanted to collaborate, how he wanted me to come on his shows and stuff. And I never wanted to associate with the guy because I thought he was gross and fake. But as you can see, it's these were just texts, but a lot of this would happen through Messenger on Facebook too. But he would always I would never respond to him either. Eventually, got to the point where he started to just make random comments about me online on Facebook about how I was starting an alt-right alliance with him. He also tagged Faith Goldie in the same post. He said we were both starting part of an alt-right alliance with us. Because I was trying to create my own thing, my own brand as a person, and I'm very hyper aware of optics and semantics and language. I never wanted to ever to embrace or adopt those terms because I don't consider myself alt-right. I never did. I definitely wanted to talk to the alt-right and to document a lot of their stuff as a journalist because that is part of the bigger, kind of part of what I'm doing as what I would say one of the only genuine free speech platforms around, and I want to give them a fair voice. But I never wanted to have to be labeled. It's a whole part of how they, Ronnie knows that, so eventually he just started labeling me that, and then, eventually I had to, start addressing the problem because he's like cancer, and then get belt on that. But this just shows you the kind of stuff where he's the kind of guy that will nag the shit out of you. Went from May to June, July. I don't know. By the time I finally had to start arguing with him, it was on another Facebook post months later. But see, Ronnie would be insistent, telling me he was. I don't like it when people who don't know me tell me who I am. Because Ronnie would always send me messages like, you're this, and you're that, and you know this, but you won't say that, and things like that. Just annoying things like me. I'm like, who the hell is this person? Be gone. But because he didn't, I was ignoring him, he started to slander me as being alt-right online. Now, I'll say this. Kevin Goodrow is a guy who has a background as an actual white supremacist. I believe he would call himself that. I believe he's reformed now. But he had a tattoo of his actual swastika on his chest, and he's well known as one of the farthest examples you can get sort of a representation of a true far right. When I was making media, I was trying to send messages out to all, like to anarchists and to communist groups and to national groups and everything. And Kevin was always, even though Kevin and I don't have the same politics, we were always polite to each other. And he actually let me, he gave me like an admin thing to one of his Facebook page is called Nationalist Front, so that I could share Freebird articles into it. Because I was trying to share Freebird articles everywhere in all the political groups I could to generate discussion. But I was, so a lot of people on the left see that, oh, he's in this Facebook group. That means that he's a nationalist and stuff. Thinking about me, I'm not. That never meant that I was a nationalist, part of the Nationalist Front. It meant that I had permission as a media guy to share articles in that group. And if you look at the context of what my platform was about, then it makes sense. Anyway, Goudreau, despite our disagreements, we've always been polite to each other. And the irony of this is that there's a lot more honor from him, I feel, than Ronny Cameron. But one thing that he said in this thread was, by the way, I just watched a video by Alex Van Ham, a libertarian media personality that has some right-wing views, but also liberal in many ways. We've talked, but don't get along politically at all, so I can vouch for the fact Alex is simply a journalist and perhaps hates me, but never disrespected me, unlike Ronny Cameron, who is in fact a douchebag. My point is, he pointed out on ARC Antifa is written in his blog art right on the top of the page. So yes, he's an Antifa supporter and connected. Can't believe I missed that. He's talking about Kurt Phillips in the sentence. Antifa is a big letters. So Kevin Goudreau is actually completely correct in his assessment here, in my opinion, and not dishonest at all. And this funny comparison when you think about him and Ronny. And I don't even hate Kevin. I don't know him really. I don't agree with his politics, and that's about all I know about him. But we've been very civil to each other, and I appreciated that he let me share my media in his group. This is also just fine. Well, obviously Ronny ended up turning on the. I've said this before. I try to tell younger white guys all the time that just because we're living in a culture now where there's definitely a progressive media bias that produces anti-white rhetoric all the time, which is actually produced by a lot of rich white people, and mostly just there's all kinds of weird shit going on, but it's usually just a way of it's really classism disguised as something else, and they're taking out on white working class people. But don't get emotionally triggered. I have been, a lot of me and myself and a lot of my friends went through and have gone through or are going through a process of being emotionally triggered by this, which takes several years to kind of process. And my advice to younger guys that are just sort of becoming more conscious of it is like, try not to let it become so emotionally triggering, because that's actually the game that they are trying to play. They're banking on that, and they want to provoke a reaction from you. And if you go through a process of evolution and learning and self-education and everything, eventually you'll come out, if you have the potential to begin with, a more evolved person. But a lot of people, I use the metaphor of the Lord of the Rings. They find out about this thing that they talk about in right-wing circles called the JQ, and it becomes like they're precious. They become obsessed with it. That's what I feel happened to Ronny. Like, physically, you can see, and you can watch the progression. His hair started falling out around the same time. His teeth are rotten. The worse his genetics become physically, the more he becomes obsessed with his own racial superiority and obsession with the JQ, which he doesn't properly understand. And so eventually, he became mostly obsessed with ranting about Jewish people. Eventually, somebody noticed, and then I didn't make this, but somebody put this on Kijiji, and I thought it was hilarious. Somebody's that formerly, when he was working with the JDL before he became this huge anti-Semite, someone's claiming that he actually, in order to join the JDL, had to get circumcised. Now, I assume the whole thing is a joke, but everyone I've asked in the JDL if it's real or not, they just say they don't know. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I just thought it was funny. I think even Antifa has noticed at this point, because they seem to troll him a lot on Twitter with this. This one says, this is where Ronnie's at now. He says, a guy like Nick Fuentes may put America first, but I put the white man ahead of all else. Racial loyalty over national pride. European identity over nationality. The West over America. Got to get your priorities straight. This is straight grifting, by the way, guys. Like, this is straight grifting for anyone who can't recognize this. But yeah, and then whenever he talks nonsense like this and starts going on about solutions, people notice that try to pipe in, hey Ronny, weren't you very recently working with the JDL, and what's going on here with your stuff? I think someone bought it. That's amazing. Sorry guys, I'm just looking at the chat now. Oh man, someone in the chat just said he has a massive ego. He takes offense to everything. So of course he will lash back. Maybe he will challenge Alex to a boxing match. So I'm not. I don't know if who. Pardon me. Sorry, I gotta plug my computer in here for a second so my battery doesn't die. I have already gone over this for months and months and months. So I'm gonna just skip ahead then because you brought that up in the chat. Because I know that Ronnie is a fake. It's obvious. Um, and I actually box, and I know that he's a pussy. Okay, I'll jump down in the stream here. It takes a long time to load this much cringe into a thing, but I'm gonna jump ahead, address this, and then I'll back up to some other stuff. So I had formally, like, I have this all on record. It's taken me a long time to get all of this accumulated properly on record so I could lay this out. I already challenged him formally. Okay, by the way, also, this is why I'm always telling people to read my favorite book, The Professor in the Cage, and to educate themselves a bit on, like, Western civilization and honor culture and dueling culture and stuff like that. I like pugilism. I like boxing. I think it's a beautiful sport, and it's a good way that men have evolved, a good masculine way to settle disputes. I don't want a street fight with Ronnie for legal reasons and because he's a rat, and I just don't trust him. So I'm not gonna street fight the guy, and I know he's not serious about that anyway. But I really do want to box the guy, and I issued this challenge to him, and he's accepted the challenge. But then obviously backed out when he find out that I know what I'm doing in a boxing ring, as to a degree. No, I'm not. I'm actually nobody. I've been training for about a year. But what I mean is, I know what I'm doing compared to someone who's never trained before. So if Ronnie and I got in a ring, it's not going to be fair. He doesn't have the cardio or the conditioning or the understanding of the mechanics. He's not strong enough to knock me out in 30 seconds. So he would gas out quickly, and then I would just mess with him for a while. But Ronnie likes to spurg on me in text too. So one time he told me, bro, I'm not afraid to fight anyone on the streets. I've been beat up really bad multiple times and have beaten people badly multiple times. I like getting hit, lol. But if I ever attend another rally, it will be one that I organize myself and will have. I just thought this was funny to show that he admits that he's been beaten up multiple times, but I don't buy for a second that he's ever beaten anyone up. Oh yeah, the whole thing, by the way, of these protests. He wanted to make a protest team and a white wellness network and all this other nonsense. There's absolutely no point to these protests that you guys have. There's absolutely no point to them other than to give optics, than to hand optics over to the left to make fun of people on the right. That's all that is for. So, just a second. After Ronnie accepted the boxing match, then he backed out, then he wanted to do it. Then I found out recently that he was trying to talk no white guilt. He wanted to challenge no white guilt into having a boxing match with him. Two guys that have no experience boxing are going to peacock on the internet as if they are tough guys. Well, I don't know no white guilt. He probably has nothing to do with this, but Ronnie trying to do that is hilarious. This is a collection from our screenshots when we were talking. This happened just before the Don Cherry rally. This is another reason that I know Ronnie's a total phony. So I said, tell me, this is near the end of a long conversation we had one day. I said, tell me right now, Ronnie, you want to go our separate ways or keep antagonizing each other online? He said, I can literally send you pictures of books I've read and own, lol. That is because in a previous comment I said, I know you don't read books, Ronnie. He said, separate ways. I said, here's my offer then. Leave me alone and I leave you alone. Same thing that works for me with others I've had problems with. You leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. He said, fucking great. It's unneeded stress. He said, my word is as good as yours. As long as you stick to that, I will too. He said, awesome, man, and if you take down all your posts of me, I will do the same, but I'm not demanding that. He said, I'll remove my posts over the next couple days. How about if people bring it up, we just tell them we spoke, it's over, and we agree to ignore each other and leave it at that. He said, that's cool. Deal. This was the last communication I had with him before the Don Cherry rally. So there's also a record of me showing you that I very clearly, even after the boxing match that he ran away from, I very clearly offered him a truce to just stop antagonizing each other. And I told him, and I used my wording very specifically. I said, my word is as good as yours. I wanted him to make a deal and then see if he'd stick to it. The next time I saw him at a Don Cherry rally, he came up to me on his camera on a live stream and was extremely polite to me when my hands weren't full. Then, afterwards, when I was standing talking to some people and I had my glass on and I was carrying my camera and a bunch of stuff, he walked up to me and touched my face trying to provoke a fight. For two reasons. One, he knew I couldn't respond with my hands full, and two, he wasn't on a live stream anymore. So right there, he provoked me again. Now I obviously got the better end of that because all I had to do was take a step back. Well, I slapped him in the face kind of, and then I took a step back after he touched me. I slapped him a bit. Then I took a step back and just kind of let the crowd handle him. And there's a hilarious footage of all of that on this channel. Just click on it, and you can see it. He gets in this. This Brazil was about to basically like hog tie him, and then ended up chasing him away. You can see Ronnie kind of like literally get chased away. Now, the irony of a white nationalist pushing for an ethno-state in Canada attending a rally related to Don Cherry trying to honor veterans who fought to defeat ethno-nationalism apparently was lost on almost everyone that day. But I got a kick out of it. Sorry, just looking at the chat again. There's actually a lot of there's a ton of comments that are getting blocked here by the algorithm. Shoot. Shadow Beast must die. Oh darn, I got confused between Ronnie Cameron and Chris Cantwell. It's hard to keep these toothless skinheads straight. It is. And you know what else is funny too? I was looking, there's another picture I had of Kurt from the guy who runs the Anti-Racist Canada blog, and Ronnie side by side, and I was like, what are the odds that the voice of the far-right ARC blog and the prominent voice of white nationalism in Canada would both be bald guys with appearance deficits? Like, is that just a coincidence, or am I reading too much into that? So some other highlights I want to show here. This is one of my favorite Ronnieisms. If you refuse to oppose the erasure of your own race, you are the definition of a cuck. I don't think he understands what a cuck is in any sense.